welcome back friends into the current affair lecture series that we have been doing for the last 1 year. This week was very happening one. A lot of events have happened, like ouster of the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Mr. Imran Khan. Sri Lankan economic crisis has deepened. RBI's first monetary policy committee meeting for the financial year of 2023 has happened, and a very new and very generic tool for controlling the liquidity into the market has also been brought by RBI, and we will be discussing all those important matters that are important from the point of view of UPSC exam and other state exams also. So let's begin. The first topic at hand today is a Sri Lankan economic crisis. Now, why is this crisis important? A lot of economic terms related to our exam, we'll be focusing on them and we will be going into the depth of them during this during the analysis of this Sri Lankan economic crisis. And other important thing is that we need to understand as to what kind of economic policies are leading to such kind of economic crisis. The very important part of this whole economic crisis in Sri Lanka is that it is not only an economic crisis, it is also a political one. So we need to understand not only from the prelims point but also from the mains point of view as to what kind of economic policies a country needs to pursue or does not need to pursue, which it should avoid to avoid such an economic crisis that Sri Lanka is currently facing. The situation is very dire in Sri Lanka. Protests are going on. People are queuing up the queues are for kilometers for diesel, fuel and LPG. Medicines are in shortage. India has extended its loan and credit line facility to Sri Lanka to buy medicines and pay for petroleum. Now, a very similar kind of situation has happened to India already. In 1991, during the balance of payment crisis, BOP crisis, the foreign reserves of India were so depleted that we had like dollars only to buy fuel for next 1.5 months in 1991, during which we went to IMF, and then IMF we took loan from IMF, and we also implemented some fiscal policies which have resulted into the opening up of economy of India, and a sustained growth for a good period of time has happened in India. Now, Sri Lanka is in a very similar situation where the forex reserves of Sri Lanka has depleted a lot, and a situation has arisen in Sri Lanka where not only economic but political sovereignty is also under threat. So let's begin with the lecture first of all. Now why in news? Because Sri Lankan PM has appealed to the anti-government protesters to end their protests. Okay, and during these events, protests have continued in Colombo and in other cities also like Kandy. Sri Lanka asks experts to end. Now, very important point is they have asked the experts to plan a debt restructuring plan. Okay, debt restructuring plan, we will be looking into what it is. The third point that we need to look in, Sri Lankan occupies, protesters have also barged into the president's house in Sri Lanka. Okay, and India is also facing a refugee crisis situation here, where like Tamil families from the northern part of Sri Lanka are coming into India in Tamil Nadu and seeking refuge. So it is not only a problem of Sri Lanka, it is also a problem of India. Okay. So we will look at this whole problem from 2 points. The first one is evolution of crisis, and the second one is evolution of crisis post-COVID. It is like evolution of crisis up to COVID and evolution of crisis post-COVID. So there is certainly a structural deficiency in the economy of Sri Lanka. Definitely there is a structural deficiency. We will be observing what kind of structural deficiency Sri Lanka has in this evolution. And after that, we will be looking into what has led to this sudden rise in prices of goods that has led to protests in Sri Lanka, the effect of COVID and all, and then the whole lecture will be completed. So what happened was, up to 2009, the 26-year war, like in 2009 to 26-year war culminated by the end of LTTE, Liberation Tigers, like LTT was a secessionist organization in China in the northern part. LTTE basically was uh, LTT was an organization of Tamil nationalists in China, ठीक है, oh sorry, श्रीलंका. तो श्रीलंका का जो composition है, ठीक है, श्रीलंका का जो composition है उसमें 75% Buddhists, 75% Buddhists, which are majority, okay, and around 10% of the population is Hindu, who are Tamils, okay, and rest other minorities, Christians and Muslims. So 75% of Buddhists, most of the Tamils reside in the northern part of Sri Lanka. Okay. This northern part, Sri Lanka, okay, is not a very good map. Okay. And the rest of the region is dominated by the Sri Lankan Buddhists. So there has always been a secessionist movement in Sri Lanka by the northern Tamils. They have demanded a separate country for themselves, like a separate country on the basis of religion and of course language. That led to formation of LTTE. What it led to formation of? Liberation Tigers of Tamil Ilam. It was an organization. Prabhakaran was its head and founder also. That led to a civil war for 26 years in Sri Lanka. That war ended in 2009. Okay. That war ended in 2009 with the destruction of the whole LTTE, the organization itself, and with the killing of Prabhakaran, who was the head of LTTE, Litte. At that point in time, in 2009, if we look at the economy, the GDP growth rate was around 8 to 9%. The post-war GDP growth was around 8 to 9%. Why? Because of 2-3 reasons. Although in the whole world there was a recession, but in 2009 itself, Sri Lanka has gone to IMF. Sri Lanka has gone to IMF. Okay. They have taken an IMF loan. Okay, the first thing. The second one was, due to the ending of the war, the whole country was like, the war has ended, and of course with the end of the war, the prosperity will come along. So what happened was, from 2009 to 2012, okay, 2009 to 2012, the GDP growth rate of Sri Lanka was around 8 to 9%, and it was classified as upper middle class country. Around 2012, it was classified as upper middle class country. Okay, upper middle class country. But what happened? In 2013, there was a global fall in commodity prices. Actually, this global fall in commodity prices started in 2011 itself. But in 2013, due to the fall in prices of energy, basically fuel and food, because of the good harvest around the world first, and the second one was due to excess of the excess of liquidity measures taken by the Federal Reserve of USA. ठीक है, तो उसकी वजह से क्या हुआ? There was a lot of liquidity in the market, जिसकी वजह से पूरे वर्ल्ड में liquidity बहुत ज़्यादा हो गई, and along with the good harvest, what happened was the fall in prices, global fall in commodity prices. और दूसरा impact ये था कि 2009 के recession के बाद there was a global slump in demand, right? The demand of the goods was like falling down, because of course due to the effect of recession, people were not in buying things, they were basically saving. Of course, the natural instinct says that we should save during the situation of crisis rather than expending. So what happened was, in 2013, global fall in commodity prices, which led to a very sharp decline in the GDP growth rate of Sri Lanka. Around 2016, from 2009 to 2012, the GDP growth rate was around 8 to 9%. 8 to 9%. From 2013 to 2016, it was around 5%. Almost halved. Okay? So what happened was in 2016, Sri Lanka again went to IMF, and they took a loan of $1.5 billion for the period of 2016 to 2019. फिर 2016 से 2019 तक they took a loan of $1.5 billion. Okay. When you go to IMF, okay, they extend you loan, but they also put certain conditions while extending you the loan. Okay, like when India went to IMF in 1991, IMF extended the condition that India will open up its market, deregulate. ठीक है, तो public sector को deregulate करेगा India, and these were the conditions that IMF put on India. Basically what IMF does is IMF starts directing the finance minister or the government of India to take such actions so that the economy gets opened up, the competition starts, and the private sector is allowed and the public sector is deregulated. Okay. So similarly, when they took a loan of $1.5 billion, their fiscal deficit was around 5 to 6%. Okay. So IMF put a condition that by 2019, 2020 basically, you will have to limit this fiscal deficit around 3.2%. Okay. So IMF put a condition on Sri Lanka that by the end of 2020, you will have to lower your fiscal deficit by 3.2%. Now, what is fiscal deficit? Fiscal deficit means, fiscal deficit in the very simpler terms, if you try to understand, is expenditure minus income. Okay? Expenditure minus income. If your expenditure is greater than your income, okay, so you are incurring a fiscal deficit. Okay? If your expenditure is greater than your income, you are incurring a fiscal deficit. So fiscal deficit means, अगर of course आपकी income 100 rupees है and your expenditure is 110, ठीक है? So where are you getting this rupees 10 from? You are taking loans, you are making borrowings. Okay, so this was around 3.2%. That means the expenditure of the Sri Lankan government exceeded its income by 3.2%. Okay, so IMF put that condition. Sorry, it was not 3.2%, it was around 5 to 6%. But IMF put that condition that you will have to bring your fiscal deficit around 3.2% by the end of 2022. Now, Sri Lanka's economy is heavily dependent on tea exports, the first, and tourism. Tourism is one of the most remunerative sectors of Sri Lanka. If you look at the Sri Lankan economy in a bit of detail, so you'll observe that there are three major sectors that drive Sri Lankan economy. Sri Lankan economy is not based on manufacturing. Okay, it is a very service-based economy. Okay, so the first important point is tourism. The first driving part of Sri Lanka's economy is tourism. Okay, the second one is tea exports, and third one is tourism, tea exports, and the third one is remittances. Okay, remittances. Like India is India is the greatest receiver of remittances all across the world. So majority of these remittances come from Central Asian countries. Okay. Similarly, majority of the remittances in Sri Lanka come from Central Asia. Now you are having a basic understanding what went wrong with the Sri Lankan economy post COVID. Okay. These sectors were very badly hit post COVID, but in 2019 Easter bombings took place where many churches and hotels were targeted by the terrorist organizations, Islamic terrorist organizations. Okay, due to which USA and other Western countries as well raised the concerns regarding tourism. It issued advisories to its citizens to not visit Sri Lanka due to the terror threat. Due to which a very steep fall in the revenues, happened. Until 2019, tourism sector brought $4 billion. Okay, $4 billion per annum. It was at its peak just before 2019 Easter bombings. The whole economy of Sri Lanka is valued at $87 billion. Okay, $87 billion. ठीक है, तो I hope you understood कि as soon as Easter bombings took place, what happened was the tourists started avoiding Sri Lanka, due to which the tourism sector, the whole tourism industry was badly hit. Now what happened? They again went to IMF for a loan, 2019. Now, having taken a lot of loan in 2009, 2016, 2019, now Sri Lanka is under a very stressed condition. We'll be looking at its debt profile as well in a very short amount of time. We'll be looking at that as well. And in the end, 2020, the 2-year period of COVID has like wiped away the remittances. Remittances are at very lower point, and of course tourism was almost wiped away, and tea exports have also fallen because of course the logistical issues. पूरे कोविड के टाइम वर्ल्ड में लॉजिस्टिकल इश्यूज की वजह से एक्सपोर्ट्स एंड इंपोर्ट्स वर वेरी मच हैम्पर्ड, ड्यू टू विच टी एक्सपोर्ट्स हैव आल्सो फॉलन. तो ये what we can call is this triple effect has led to a fall in generation of revenues. ठीक है. Now this is only one side of this whole crisis. We'll be looking at the other side as well. I hope you understood up to this point. Okay. Now if we look at Sri Lanka's economy post 2020 basically, ठीक है, तो in 2019 we'll be waiting for this to over. In 2020 basically job loss in West Asia, okay, and job loss in Sri Lankan cities as well in the IT sector led to what? The fall in income. ठीक है. Tourism was also badly hit. Source of foreign income dropped. Now another thing that we need to understand, is Sri Lankan economy has taken a lot of loan from the whole world. ठीक है, like from India. If we look at the debt profile of the country, sorry, ठीक है, if we look at the public debt in Sri Lanka, ठीक है, as debt to GDP ratio, okay, India's debt to GDP ratio is around 60%. Okay, now if we look at this 2018, the public debt was around 85%. ठीक है, public debt was around 85%. 85% means if 100 rupees is GDP, okay, the whole GDP, so they are having 85 rupees loan as well. तुम्हारी income 100 rupees है and you are having 85 rupees loan. Of course this loan is not paid instantly. ठीक है. Now what is important here to understand कि एक country का debt to GDP ratio high हो सकता है without the country failing economically. That depends upon what kind of loan profile you are having. If you are having very short term bonds as loan, then you will have to pay them instantly. If you are having deferred loan or long term loan, ठीक है, so you don't have to bother about those loans at this point in time. ठीक है, like if the country has 30-year loans, ठीक है, अब लोन कैसे कंट्री लेती है? By floating sovereign bonds. ठीक है, like India also floats sovereign bonds and takes loans. अब bonds क्या होता है? Bond is nothing but a paper which assures that I will be paying you, or like, I hope you understand that, but for the sake of explanation I'll tell you in a very brief कि sovereign bonds, all these countries float sovereign bonds. ठीक है, sovereign bonds, and when like for example India floats sovereign bonds. So bond is what? Bond is a debt instrument, right? Debt instrument. Bond is nothing but a debt instrument. When I purchase a bond of any company or a country, for example if I purchase a bond floated by USA, ठीक है, तो USA will be obligated to pay me if I purchase a bond of ₹100, ठीक है, या $10 floated by USA, ठीक है. In that case, if it says that they will pay me in 5 years, ठीक है, and up to 5 years they will pay me an interest of like 3.5%, 3% for example. ठीक है, तो every year I will be getting $3, and at the end of 5 years I will be getting $3 plus rupees 10, which is my principal amount. Now what happened is Sri Lanka has taken a lot of loan in the form of sovereign borrowings. Sovereign borrowing means by floating sovereign bonds from like western countries and also India, Japan and China. ठीक है, तो major the people who are having the major debt of like the China, whose debt is majorly put on Sri Lanka are basically West, India, China and Japan. So many people are also talking about the debt trap that has been laid by China. तो China का पूरा debt is around 10%. ठीक है, so of course the kind of aggressiveness that China has shown towards extending its loan, that is why it is called debt trap. वैसे China का पूरा debt it is around 10%. Okay, back to the public debt. So what happened was they have took in around 2018 itself, the public debt of Sri Lanka was around 85%. In 2020 basically, in 2020 2019 and 2020 and 2021, the public debt to GDP ratio was around 104%. Okay, 104% of the debt of Sri Lanka was around 104% of its GDP. Means if their income was, gross domestic product was around 100 rupees, so their loan was around 104 rupees. Now it is around 110%. That means public debt of Sri Lanka is very high. Okay, so that is not a like problem per se. It is not problem in itself. Almost all countries have very high, like developed countries have even higher public debt to GDP. Why? तो अगर डेवलप्ड कंट्रीज के पास इससे भी ज्यादा पब्लिक डेट है तो श्रीलंका के लिए ही क्यों प्रॉब्लम है? तो इट इज प्रॉब्लम फॉर श्रीलंका बिकॉज फ्रॉम 2020 onwards up to 2026, all the loans that Sri Lanka has taken are going to mature in the sense कि जैसे मैंने अभी कहा कि I am taking a loan of $10 for 5 years. Okay, and I took this loan in 2017. ठीक है, तो 2017 plus 5, 2022 means this country will be paying this loan back to me in 2022. ठीक है, तो similarly what has happened कि श्रीलंका ने जितना लोन लिया था, जितने sovereign bonds float किए थे, these bonds and loans are going to mature in between 2020 to 2026. And if we look at IMF's report, then it says that per year they will have to pay around $4 billion. Okay, $4 billion as debt service. Debt service means paying the interest and principal, or interest or principal. मतलब you will have to service your debt obligation. So IMF says that in this period from 2020 to 2026, since the loans that Sri Lanka has taken are maturing, so Sri Lanka will have to pay an amount of $4 billion per year. ठीक है, now $4 billion means कम से कम उनका reserve 4 billion का होना चाहिए. Now if we look at the foreign reserves of country, ठीक है, if we look at ठीक है, okay, foreign debt, if we look at the profile of foreign debt, तो international sovereign bonds is around 36.4%. एशियन डेवलपमेंट बैंक से 14.6% का लोन ले रखा है, चाइना का 10.8% का है, जापान का 10.9% का है, एंड इंडिया का लोन इज अराउंड 2%. ठीक है, इफ यू लुक एट द डेट प्रोफाइल ऑफ दिस कंट्री, डेट प्रोफाइल मीन्स टू whom does श्रीलंका ओ दिस डेट, किसको किसको रिटर्न करना है पैसा. तो सबसे पहले तो इंटरनेशनल सॉवरेन बॉन्ड्स. international sovereign bonds in basically western market, USA and all these western countries. Okay, तो वो सारी countries का पूरे लोन का, if for example if they have 100 rupees of loan, तो 36.4 rupees they have to pay to international sovereign as international sovereign bonds. ठीक है, एशियन डेवलपमेंट बैंक को 14.6 रुपीज देना है, जापान को 10.9 रुपीज, बेसिकली 11 रुपीज, एंड चाइना को भी 10.8, एंड फॉर इंडिया it is 2%. That means Sri Lanka has to pay a loan of around rupees 2 if they have a total loan of rupees 100 to India. Okay, India is also a major player in this. Okay, ये तो हो गया फॉरेन डेट का प्रोफाइल. नाउ इफ वी लुक एट फॉरेन रिजर्व्स, ठीक है, नाउ इफ वी लुक एट द फॉरेन एक्सचेंज. नाउ फॉरेन एक्सचेंज, व्हाई आर वी लुकिंग एट? Because as I said that IMF has predicted that for every year to pay its loan back, Sri Lanka will need at least $4 billion. Okay, Sri Lanka will need to pay $4 billion every year. ठीक है, but what is its foreign exchange reserve? मतलब इस कंट्री के पास foreign exchange डॉलर्स में है कितना? तो that is around $2 billion only. That means the total foreign exchange reserve, the total dollars I have is $2 billion, and my obligation per year are around $4 billion. How am I going to pay it? That is what has happened. That is why Sri Lanka is going to either default on loan payments. Sri Lanka is either going to default on loan payments. That is, it will ask the countries that I will not be able to pay your loans at this point in time. I will be paying them later. And that is why in the very first slide of this whole lecture, we studied a point that the president has asked the experts to plan the restructuring of the debt. Restructuring of the debt means कि अगर कोई आपके पास, for example, आपने किसी से 100 rupees का लोन लिया है, ठीक है, and at the rate of rupees like 3% per annum. So if you are not able to pay that loan back, you can ask that person कि okay, please extend my loan to 110 rupees. I will be paying you back 110 rupees, but at even a higher cost, like 3.5% interest, but please give me some more time. Okay, give me some more time. That means I will if I have to pay this whole loan in 1 year, kindly extend me a time to 1.5 year or 2 year, whatever the time may be. This is debt restructuring. मतलब you are trying to restructure the whole debt that you have taken so that you might find yourself in a situation where you can pay your debt easily. Okay, so that is why, because they do not have the needed resources to pay their debt. The average per annum obligation is around $4 billion, but they have around $2 billion per annum available. Oh, per annum nahi. Their whole foreign exchange reserve that is available to Bank of Sri Lanka, Central Bank of Sri Lanka, is around $2 billion. So how can they pay back their loans? So that is why. And one important point to note here is, in the last 2 years, its forex reserve have depleted very sharply. It has fallen around 70%. Okay? And we know why that has happened. The very important reason is, of course, the fall in tourism due to COVID and other policies as well. Okay? Other policies, like now we'll be looking at a very like another aspect that I told. What happened was, in 2016, okay, in 2016 elections were held in Sri Lanka. Okay? Elections were held in Sri Lanka, and Gotabaya Rajapaksa, the person who is president right now, was elected. But in his election manifesto, he promised a lot of things which were not very favorable. Like, in 2019, in 2019 elections, Gotabaya, as I said, this is not only an economic crisis, and for the matter of fact, every economic crisis has a political root. Okay? So that means an economic crisis always stems from, if it does not stem, then it definitely has at least one aspect that is political in nature. Okay? And that is why economic and political crises are very interrelated. Okay, so what happened was in 2019 presidential elections were held, and Gotabaya Rajpaksha, you can call him Gotabaya Rajpaksha won the elections. And he promised in his manifesto that he will reduce taxes, he will very populist measures basically, like freebies and tax reduction and all these things, so that he can win the election easily. He won the election. Okay. Now what happened was, after winning the election, he reduced the VAT. Okay. He reduced the VAT from 15% value added tax. Okay. He reduced value added tax from 15% to 8%. ठीक है, VAT was reduced from 15% to 8%. Okay, and annual threshold limit, ठीक है, okay, and the annual threshold limit, annual threshold, ठीक है, जैसे इंडिया में टैक्स स्लैब्स होते हैं कि आप अगर इतनी इनकम से कम है तो आपको टैक्स इतना देना, इतना, अगर आप 6 लाख से कम है तो आपको टैक्स नहीं देना. तो सिमिलरली the annual threshold limit was increased from 12 million rupees, million Lankan rupees LKR, to 300 million rupees. That means a large amount of taxpayers will be given relief. Okay, but that will of course lead to drop in revenue for the government as well. ठीक है, annual, this was removed, मतलब this limit means you will have to have at least 300 million Lankan rupees income per year to pay this value added tax. Okay, and many taxes were abolished also, and this led to a huge erosion of what tax base. Again, base effect. If your base is small, okay, if your taxpayer base is small, you will have to either charge them very exorbitantly high taxes, or you will have to forego your tax opportunities. ठीक है, so what happened was, this is called base effect. Base effect means the base of the tax collector base was shortened. ठीक है, due to which the tax revenue of course was shortened. And of course what happened, and moreover, last year in 2021, what Sri Lankan government did was to put a check on the drain of foreign dollars, basically dollars. What they did was, they abolished all kind of fertilizers. Means overnight they switched from normal farming to organic one. Okay, overnight switch from normal farming, conventional farming to organic farming. अब इससे क्या हुआ, इसका बेनिफिट क्या था? द गवर्नमेंट थॉट कि एक तो ऑर्गेनिक फार्मिंग हो जाएगी, पहला. द सेकेंड पॉइंट वाज, they had to import what? Fertilizers. अब इंपोर्ट करने के लिए they will have to pay in dollars. ठीक है, तो to conserve the dollars, what government did was, they banned import of fertilizers and said that you will have to go for organic farming now. Although there was a very sharp reaction against this move within Sri Lanka and from all over the world, but still they went ahead with it. अब इसकी वजह से क्या हुआ? Although the very important thing that happened was fall in yield by 25 to 30%. A fall in yield by 25 to 30% resulted in what? Inflation of food inflation basically. Fall, जब पैदावारी कम हो जाएगी तो of course the food inflation will take place, due to which large amount of hoarding started. Hoarding of food items started, which further exacerbated inflation. And inflation is around 18% right now in Sri Lanka. ठीक है, तो I hope you understood that it's the whole crisis is not only economic, it has a political dimension to it also. ठीक है, अब what happened, अब इनके foreign reserves तो कम हो गए, foreign reserves 1.8 billion dollars के अराउंड बचे इनके पास. तो they will how are they going to import medicines, import fuel, petrol, diesel, import crude oil, import other entities like they are a very heavily import dependent economy. They are not manufacturing most of the things. So if you are an import dependent economy, you need to have constant supply of dollars. That is how you are going to trade in international market. But their dollar reserves have fallen from $7 billion to $1.8 billion or $2 billion. Okay? Due to which their ability to import has fallen very steeply. अब उसकी वजह से क्या हो गया कि इफेक्ट इतना बुरा पड़ रहा है वहां पे कि पेपर्स हैव लाइक श्रीलंकन गवर्नमेंट के पास पेपर नहीं है टू कंडक्ट द एग्जाम एंड दैट इज व्हाई all the school examinations have been cancelled for now. Okay. The second effect, of course, fuel prices are soaring, due to which rationing of fuel has started, and the government has put a limit ki how much fuel you can take, due to which long lines for fuel and LPG are like long lines are going to be formed. So all these things have culminated over the period of time, and now people are protesting against Gotabaya Rajpaksha and are asking him to resign. I hope you understood this whole. Like inflation, rice, which was 98.3 Lankan rupees per kg, is around 161. Okay? See, the inflation is very high. Red onion, which was around 350 rupees per 5 or 10 kg, I believe, is now 500, trading at 560. And similarly, potato, which was 160 rupees per 5 kg, I believe, is now trading at 279.7 rupees per 5 kg. That means you can see almost everything is around at least 60% price hike, and that means the population of the Sri Lanka is facing very crucial time for their basic necessities. Now, if I want to sum up, this whole Sri Lankan crisis, I would say major 3-4 points. The first point is huge sovereign borrowings. Okay, huge sovereign borrowings. Excessive sovereign borrowings, due to which the debt to GDP ratio of Sri Lanka has increased a lot, and Sri Lanka is not able to service its debt obligation. Okay? The second one is political economy. As I started in the very beginning, political economy. Political economy, in the sense, political economy means the economy which is driven by political motives. ठीक है? Political economy, ठीक है? 29 में गोटाबाया राजपक्षा का election and reduction of taxes or reduction of VAT and increasing the threshold for VAT, these led to all disastrous loss of revenue in form of tax. Okay. The third important point is what? The third important point I would say is, of course, COVID and terror attacks. Okay. The fourth important point is lack of manufacturing sector. Manufacturing sector and heavily import dependent economy. So these 4-5 points are the main reasons that we need to understand that have led to the crisis in Sri Lanka. I hope you understood this. If you have any issues regarding this, kindly ask me in the comment section. I'll be more than happy to take them.